Well, hello. We are going over chemical reaction basics today. This week that we have gone over different forms of energy, how they transform into each other, and next week we're starting photosynthesis and cellular respiration, which are two of the most well-known and important chemical reactions that constantly happen in your body. And in order to understand that, we need to be able to understand just the basics of reading a chemical reaction. So that's what we're doing today. Okay. This is an example of a chemical reaction. Chemical reactions happen literally all the time in your body. They're happening right now as you watch this video. Things to remember: reactants are always on your left, products are always on your right. When I say left and right, I mean according to the arrow. This is something that you should be writing at the top of your notes in the week 1, unit 2 document. This should be under lesson 4. Everything on the left of the arrow is a reactant. So you have to define reactant in your notes. You should be writing everything on the left of the arrow. Everything on the right of the arrow is a product. And this arrow means yields or produces. This arrow simply separates the reactants from the products. Example: this is a chemical equation. I have my reactants on this side. That is an R, I'm sorry. I have my arrow here that's yielding my products, which are on the right. You will notice that I have 4 red atoms on my left, and I have 4 red atoms on my right, but they are not in the same place. So chemical reactions, you start with something and you end with something. Nothing is really lost, but they've just rearranged. All right, big hints about chemical equations or chemical reactions. They're called the similar things. Reactants on the left, products on the right. There's a lot of numbers in chemical reactions, so we're going to break that down. A coefficient, these are the really, really big numbers that are before chemical compounds, like this is O2, oxygen. This is what you breathe. A subscript are little numbers. So H2O, you know this is water. This is telling me that I have 2 hydrogens right there. And then states of matter: S is for solid, L is for liquid, G is for gas, and AQ is for aqueous. I just want to state it so that if you see it, you're not thrown off. I don't want you to be like, what is this? So now you know. Counting atoms. Okay, coefficient indicates the number of molecules. This means that there are 2 of this molecule. This molecule is called calcium hydroxide. There are 2 of them. The parentheses isolates groups of elements. This is going to be really important once we start counting the atoms. And my subscript indicates the number of each element in the molecule. Not the molecule itself, but each element. So this is an example of 1 molecule of calcium hydroxide. The yellow circle is calcium. Oh my God. It's very difficult to write with this. Thank you for being patient. The blue is going to be an oxygen. And the green is going to be H for hydrogen. Okay, why are there then 2 of them? Because this subscript, 2, is referring to everything in the parentheses. So my 2 is going to be distributed to my oxygen and to my hydrogen. Therefore, I have 2 oxygens, 1, 2, and I have 2 hydrogens, 1, 2, in this 1 molecule of calcium hydroxide. Notice though, this lovely coefficient tells me that I have 2 of them. That means that I multiply everything in here by 2. Okay, so 2 calciums, 1, 2. Now, 1 molecule has 2 oxygens. Now that I have 2 molecules, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygens, and the same for hydrogen. Here is your method for counting atoms. You're going to look for the capital letters. This signify elements, atoms. You're going to list out all of your elements first. Subscripts outside the parentheses are going to be distributed, and then you're going to multiply by the coefficients last. So let's practice one. My first step is I have isolated all of my elements. Notice by the capital letters. Fe, capital F, lowercase e, this is iron. N is for nitrogen, and O is for oxygen. This should be iron nitrate. So my second step was to distribute the subscripts to those in parentheses. Okay, just like algebra, you know, PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses first. Whenever there is no subscript next to an atom or an element, that means that there's an implied 1, okay? So this 3, when I distribute it, I always multiply. This would be 3 times 1. There's 3 nitrogen atoms. And then with oxygen, oxygen already has 3. That means 3 times 3 is 9. I have 9 oxygen atoms. Notice there is no coefficient, so this just means I have one of these molecules, so I wouldn't have to do my last step. So for Fe, or iron, if there is no subscript, that means that there's an implied 1, just like in algebra. So I would write 1. For nitrogen, remember I distributed 3 times 1. This is going to be 3. And then oxygen started with 3. I distributed that. 3 times 3 is 9. Make sure that you wrote that in your notes. You can just type out the numbers. All right, here we go. Next one. This one's a little more challenging because we have coefficient, but we can do it. So step 1, I have separated out my elements. Ca is calcium, O is oxygen, and H is hydrogen. I need to distribute my subscript. So 2 times 1 is 2. I now have 2 oxygens. 2 times 1 is 2. I have 2 hydrogens. All right, I've distributed. There's nothing to distribute with my calcium. Calcium has an implied 1 next to it. Now that I have distributed my subscript, I need to multiply everything by my coefficient, the big number right here. So I had 1 calcium in 1 atom, in 1 molecule. Now I have 2 molecules, so I'm going to have 2 calciums altogether. For oxygen, I have 2 oxygens in 1 molecule. 2 times 2 is 4. And then hydrogen, I have 2 hydrogens because I distributed in 1 molecule, but there are 2 molecules. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? All right. Now it is your turn. Pause the video, and I want you to try these problems. So pause the video, try the problems. Welcome back. I want you to check yourself for these to make sure that you got them right. Okay? Once you've done that, you should continue on the practice in your page. Remember everything, this whole document, week 1, unit 2 is due tonight at 8 p.m. If you are not going to finish for any reason, you must email me professionally to make sure that you can get an extension and not be penalized for it. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions and have fun.